Welcome, my fellow wannabes, to another edition of Beer Bros. You guessed it. This is the second episode we are doing with Mr. Charlie Murphy. We are here in his home cellar with his 600 different bottles of beer. Not different bottles, but 600 bottles of beer. We just ended up polishing off a bottle of Darkest Hour by Anchorage Brewing Company, correct?
Anchorage Brewing.
Delicious beer. If you haven't checked that out, it's on this channel. Please go to the Beer Bros playlist to check it out. So, Charlie, how you feeling, man?
Good.
That was a pretty heavy beer we just drank. That was 13% alcohol.
Yeah.
I had to kind of wait a little bit before we started recording the next episode.
It's, good end of the day beer.
Yeah. I would never be able to drink an entire one of those by myself.
Oh, no.
I have a story for you.
You have to share those.
So I started getting into the craft brewing scene, about a year or two ago. And a friend of ours, Mikey, is a friend of the show. He's actually going to be on an episode here pretty soon, or a couple episodes. He gave me a bottle of Dark Lord. Okay. Do you have any Dark Lord here?
I do.
Okay. So he gave me a bottle of Dark Lord. Mm-hmm. And I had drank, I'm a big gamer, so I'll stay up late, and drink beer. So, it wouldn't be unreasonable to say that, you could drink a big stout like that over the course of 3 or 4 hours. Just be sipping on it.
Yeah.
Well, I drank a bottle of Dark Lord, which I was not expecting to be so sweet. Mm-hmm. And, that one hurt me a little bit. Yeah. That was sweet. That was really sweet.
Yeah. Dark Lord needs at least 2 years so that sweetness mellows out, does whatever it does, because those things they're like candy sweet.
Yeah, it was very sweet.
Obnoxiously sweet.
Yeah, it was kind of obnoxious, actually. It really was. I was like, every time I would drink it, I'm like, man, is this a soda? It really is. It really is sweet. I just thought you would think that was funny, that I and that one took me a little more than 3 hours to drink the whole thing. So what are we drinking? What are we drinking this time?
We're gonna drink a Tilquin with Blackberriess. What is that? The Moor with Blackberriess. It's a traditional lambic. This is a 2015-2016. It's Tilquin. I don't know what else to say.
Tilquin is the brewing, or that is the type of beer?
Tilquin is the brewery.
The brewery. Okay. Yeah. So could you do something for me?
Lambic is the style that the beer is.
Right, which is a sour.
Sour.
Okay. So there's all these different types of sour beers, right? Yep. So we kind of have, this range of, your lagers. You go from a broad. Tell me if this is right or wrong. So you kind of have like the lagers, or your more lighter type style beers, or can be the more lighter type style. Then you have like your brown ales, and then like your porters, and then your stouts, which there's varying degrees of stouts. You got your milk stouts, your oatmeal stouts, traditional stouts, stuff like that.
Barrel-aged stouts.
What's that?
Barrel-aged
stouts, right. So then a lambic, that kind of falls somewhere in its own little category, because that's almost like, where that's more of like a traditional scale of what I was just talking about, whereas this is kind of on its own thing. And that sour scale kind of has its own range as well, right?
I would say there's a U.S. sour scale and there is a European sour scale.
Okay. You're educating me a little bit here.
Lambic is a style of sour, and it has to fall into a certain parameter in Belgium and in Europe in general most of the time. So lambics are a very traditional stylistic beer. Now, once you brew that base beer, like any beer, they add the adjuncts of blackberry or cherry or whatever, raspberries, whatever they're wanting to do. You can get a creek with cherries, a framboise with raspberries, so the variation of the lambic is basically the fruit that is added to it. But a true classic lambic is then blended into a gueuze. So you have to have multiple ages of lambic to be able to blend into the gueuze stylistic category in Belgium.
Okay. So this is not a gueuze, though.
This is not a gueuze. This would be a single year lambic.
A traditional lambic that has not been aged.
Yep. That has had fruit added to it.
Gotcha.
Now, a lambic is aged for a minimum of 1 year in its fermentation.
Okay.
So there's there's all these different little parameters. It's like wine in Europe. You know, you have the specific areas of France that can grow this grape and make this particular wine and put that appellation control A label on it that is a Bordeaux from the Bordeaux region and has only these specific grapes type of stuff in it.
Gotcha.
This has to have an X amount of grain to its recipe, and it has to be aged for at least 1 year to be considered a lambic, and it has all those different
kind of like in a similar sense of how Scotch can only be made in Scotland.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's that type of thing. See, you're educating me. It's exciting. I love it.
Yeah. That's why beer's fun.
That's exactly why beer's fun. And, you know, we've mentioned before, you know, on the show that you're a big beer geek, and I'm a big geek in general. Geeking more out about beer has become, you know, I don't think you realize, Charlie Murphy, how, and yes, his name is really Charlie Murphy.
It is really Charlie Murphy.
Charlie Murphy!
I'm rich!
Yeah. We're a family-friendly show. We don't swear on this show, all right?
Yeah.
So I don't think you realize we've had a podcast for a while now.
Okay.
This YouTube is a direct result of starting that podcast, and lots of people have helped us to get to this point where we're at now, where we can have a podcast or a YouTube. But, you know, ever since I started a podcast, I was like, man, I'm ready. I want to have a beer show, you know. Yeah. And this has been 3 years in the making.
Gotcha.
So this is really kind of a cool deal for me to see. I mean, this is a big return, you know, for me to be able to sit down with a guy who knows a lot about beer, who can give us the facts, geek out about beer. And, you know, this is just really like, you're making the dream come true, you know, being able to sit down with a true connoisseur to share these beers. And I would like to say that this episode is definitely sponsored by Charlie Murphy for providing both of the beers that we've tried, and I really appreciate it. If you guys are interested about having me come to your collection, your cellar, whatever, definitely reach out in the comments. You can email us at geeklybiweekly1@gmail.com. Lots of different ways to get a hold of us. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter and all the socials, you know. And I would like to give you a shout out. So obviously this bottle right here, it has a cork on it. So in a minute, whenever we pour it, and I'm going to have you, while you're doing this, I'm going to give you a shout out here. Will you pull up the information on this beer, the Tilquin?
Oh, yeah.
And that way we have it ready. So Charlie Murphy is a brewer himself, a home brewer. He is a award-winning home brewer. Actually, he has a trophy around here somewhere. We probably can't put it in the shot right now just because there's so much stuff around here. But this man knows his stuff, all right, if you can't tell already. And he also is really into woodworking. So I would like to show you right here on the GoPro as well. This is a handmade, something made by Charlie Murphy. It is a bottle opener. So if you had a bottle, you would go, you know, like...
It doesn't look like it should work.
But it does.
But it grabs the bottle there.
And then... boop, pops it open, just like that. So, and I'll demonstrate over here on the GoPro. It goes like this, boop, and it's perfect. It's ergonomically nearly perfect. So, very, very cool. We're going to keep that right there. Where can we find you for that, Charlie Murphy?
On Etsy at Tapton Timber Company. That's TAPDN timberco.com.
And you can follow him on Instagram as well. And is that what you are on Untapped as well?
No.
Okay, just Charlie Murphy on Untapped.
Untapped on Brew Darkness.
Oh. Are you really?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Darkness is spreading.
Darkness!
That's right. So we are going to... Do you mind if I do the honors?
No, go ahead.
So we are going to start taking this this top off here. It's time to get some of this on here. And I have to say, you know, sours are becoming one of this thing. They've obviously been around for a long time. But it's starting to become one of those things. It's like the sours are like the new IPA when you think about it, because you know there's been such an influx of IPAs, and there's been such an influx of new IPA drinkers. You know that it's kind of, in a way, it's becoming more widely accepted amongst the beer community.
Yeah.
And now sours, it's like we need the next new thing. So sours, obviously, are the next thing. So if you could, can you? I don't know how to do that. Can you do it? Oh, there we go. Pretty easy. So, do you mind if I pour?
No, go ahead.
So, a decently aggressive pour, would you say? All right. So, could you
You will have sediment in this one, too.
Okay.
So, don't...
Try not to pour the entire thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it'll get a little hazy.
All
It's
right.
nothing bad. It's vitamin B and excellent stuff for you. Probiotics, you know. Sour beers are the healthiest beer you can drink.
That makes sense. There's a lot of natural bacteria in there, yeah?
Yeah, you have all the probiotics and all the natural live culture in them. A lot of times when I'm,
That's about right.
A lot of times when I'm like, man, I would like a beer, but I really am jonesing for a sour beer, I'll just drink a kombucha. Because
that's exactly it, dude.
Like,
I've been saying that for a while. I'm like, man, kombucha tastes exactly like it.
Kombucha is the O'Doul's of sour beers.
Gotcha.
That's how I look at it.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, the first time I ever had
you get a like 0.25% of alcohol from the fermentation, but nothing major, and then you still get the sour tastiness
right
from it. So
I liked kombucha, before I ever had a sour beer. But literally the first time I ever drank a sour, I was like, this just tastes like kombucha.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very similar in taste. So if you like kombucha,
especially
definitely
fruited.
Yeah, for sure.
Fruited ones.
So before we drink this, we're gonna let this baby breathe just a little bit, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Which on the last episode you said is recommended, to let that kind of open up a little bit. Would you kind of tell us the different tiers of sour beer? So I know like a farmhouse ale, that's like a sour.
Yeah.
So then you have a lambic, that's a sour.
A farmhouse, basically your sour beers, depending on the yeast used, is what is going to give you your variation of sour, from very mild intensity to 3 warheads in your mouth sour, like puckering sour.
Yeah, it's like
so. You have your Brettanomyces, which gives you everything from barnyard and grass and hay to, a real clean, depending on which strains of Brettanomyces you're using. A lot of German sours have, literally, like, you can take a drink and go, yeah, I just walked through somebody shoveling hay into a horse trough, feeder thing, because that's the feel that yeast throws, those esters throw off. Then you have Saccharomyces and Lactobacillus. Sac and Lacto are your sharper sours. Saccharomyces is actually one of the main yeast in a kombucha, is Saccharomyces. And you have those sharper, kind of sharp notes of sour. Lactobacillus is the same way. Pediococcus is one of the souring. It's not used as much, but it definitely enhances the other ones along the way. Brett is the most probably predominant yeast in sour beers, I would say, because it's the most controllable. As far as everything I've done, Brett's the more controllable and expectation satisfying yeast that you can go with.
Like the expectation versus reality is like pretty much on par.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So commercial brewers, Cascade. I'll just grab a bottle because it's right here. Cascade inoculates only with Lactobacillus. Any other yeast that is in that beer happens naturally occurring within the brewery. They don't push that yeast into it. So the only yeast that they are pushing is Lactobacillus, and Cascade is one of those more puckering type of sour beers from a commercial brewer.
So this is real sour. Like
Yeah.
When we say sour, we mean like really sour.
Sour. Yeah, really sour.
Right. But there's varying degrees. Like you gave me just a sample of your lambic that you've made, and it was in gin barrels. And I took it. You were like, now this is a true sour. I was expecting more of a puckering taste, but really just kind of hit me back in like the back of the jaws, a little bit. But it was, that was not to like blow smoke up the guy's butt or anything, but that was probably the best sour I think I've ever drank, honestly.
Well, we're gonna have a really good one right now.
Okay, well we'll see. We'll see, Charlie Murphy. What I really appreciate, being able to have. I really appreciate being able to have someone on the show that really is, you're taking it a step more than knowledgeable. You're getting down to the science of it. You're getting down to this is why this tastes this way versus this way, and you know the theory behind what you're actually talking about, and that's hard to find. So I appreciate you bringing that to the table and kind of educating us more, because I'm still learning more. Whenever someone says a sour, now I can say, okay, what kind of sour, right? It's kind of like a lager. It's like, okay, what kind of lager? You know what I mean? We're talking like what, So,
Yeah.
well, this has been breathing for enough time. I think let's give it a smell. Woo-wee! That smells sour. It smells good.
Get that blackberry nose, a little fruity nose.
Let's give her a drink. Woo! That is sour, but not the most sour thing I've ever drank.
Yeah.
That's like just from first taste, on the nose, I'm just going to say it right now. On the nose, it doesn't smell amazing.
It's got a funky.
It's got a funk to it.
It's got that Brett funk going on in the nose.
But it doesn't smell bad.
No.
It just smells like, oh, that's kind of weird. I need a second before I can really give a first impression.
That's something if you're not used to drinking beer in that way, like wine drinkers.
That's exactly what I'm about to say. Right.
Aerate the wine to open it up. Drinking beer that way.
Not for you.
No, that's the way you should drink.
Oh, that's the way you should drink.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're saying if you're not used to it.
Yeah, if you're not used to it, start doing it.
Gotcha.
Pull air through, get air moving through that beer, and open it up in your palate. And that way, it really just blossoms across the palate, and you can get more out of it. You get more fruit notes out of it. You get all those varying little nuances, just like you would in a wine. Wine drinkers have it down.
That makes sense. Well, there's been a lot of times, and just to clarify, I was saying if you're not pouring it into an aeratable glass, in such a way, then you're probably doing it wrong, is what I meant. You should probably start using a more full glass to probably drink a sour out of. And honestly, when we open a new sour, there's been times, we haven't done it on this show, but there's been times where I will actually pour it into a wine glass, to kind of open it up a little bit. And would you say drinking a sour or drinking, a different type of sour, if you didn't have a tulip glass, would a wine glass be the next best thing to try and potentially drink it out of?
Probably.
Okay. Yeah, because those are designed to really bring it up and
open it up.
Would you say that we know for a fact, it's been scientifically proven, ladies and gentlemen, that the glass you drink your beer out of directly affects the smell, which we know smell inherently affects what? Taste. So,
actually, yes, and it affects taste, not flavor.
Taste, not flavor, because everyone will get a different flavor out of the type of beer that they're drinking.
Well, you only have 5 taste buds.
5 taste buds.
Yeah.
Which are?
Sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and umami.
Umami.
Umami is the metallic reaction you get when you have a blood taste in your mouth. Like meat.
Okay. Gotcha.
Meat is the umami reaction in your mouth.
Which makes sense why a lot of people say, hey, drink this particular beer when you're pairing with a particular meal. Gotcha.
Yep.
So, remind me again, what is the specific notes that this is going for?
It's blackberry. It has blackberries added.
Blackberries added.
So the blackberry note in this isn't...
It's not super prominent.
No, it's not overpowering. It's not super prominent.
But it's there.
It's definitely there, and it comes in really nicely and just evens out that sour note and the body of it. I think it definitely adds a little bit to the body of the beer with that blackberry in there.
Yeah, a lot of sours that you drink, and it's one of those things too for me where as just someone who's kind of, when you first turn 21, I'm 24 now at this point. And when you first, I've been drinking a lot. A lot of different, not a lot in quantity, but just quality.
It's been expanding his horizons.
Exactly, that's right. So I've drank a lot of ciders, and you drink ciders for a little bit when you first start drinking, and you're like, oh, that's pretty good. But then when you really start kind of branching out into the more bitter sours and kind of seeing the art in that, that has almost prepared me for beers like this. The more bitter ciders have prepared me, because it's almost like a wine at this point. You kind of feel like these sours are wine, and to this day, my wife, she's not hugely a fan of beer, but she does like wine, and she does love ciders and sours, which makes a lot of sense because it probably uses a lot of the same palate.
Almost all of my friends, if their wives like red wines and are more wine drinkers than beer drinkers, almost all of them like sour beers. So it's a really weird way that you can see somebody that's like, oh, do you like beers? And they're like, no, I like wine.
Right.
And like, oh, what kind of wine do you like? And they start talking about it. It's like, oh, okay,
try this.
You can go pour a mildly sour beer and give it to them, and they're like,
what is this?
Well, that's pretty good.
Right.
And it somehow the wine notes and the way the wine, because in reality, wine is just a little bitty push away from becoming vinegar. I mean, it is. Like, yeah. I mean, for a perfect example, there's Rushing River Brewing Company out in Russian River, California. There are wineries that will not allow their employees to go to that winery or to that brewery because they have so much active airborne sour bacteria yeast that they do not want it brought back into their wineries.
Wow. Because it's that potent.
Wow. Like, they don't want them going there on lunch and then coming back to the winery and walking through the winery
because they're contaminating, tainting their...
contaminate the whole winery with a Brett or Lacto or Saccharomyces.
That's going to completely throw it out because it is that potent.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense when you drink it.
Then they would have really expensive vinegar.
Right. That's good. That's good. Yeah, and it's one of those things too. I feel like beer is so mental. When somebody thinks about beer, I said this with Kyle on our mother's interview we had. You think about you say like, oh, I drink beer. They're thinking like farty, bloaty, light beer, which has its place, on a hot day, whatever.
On a river.
Yeah, maybe not for you. I mean, for me, it's budget beer. But, it has its place for me, and I can see the appreciate, I can appreciate it for what it is. And I mean, I don't drink a ton anyways, but when I do, it's nice to be able to crack open something like this where, you might ask somebody, do you like wine? Mm-hmm. Are you a wine drinker? What do you like to drink? And I would venture to say there's probably a beer out there for everybody. It's like, oh, you like gin? Okay, let's give you a real dry IPA or something like that and see what you think. Because you may like it, And that's...
Or you could get a Mother's Manhattan.
Which is? He's pulling it off the shelf, ladies and gentlemen. This man has everything. I am just blown away. And then it looks so good in the shot, too. I mean...
You can get...
Oh, right. The rye barrel Manhattan. Yeah.
Rye barrel.
Fun fact for you. Manhattan. So, the Imperial 3 Blind Mice.
Yeah.
That's what it's called, the rye barrel Manhattan. So, fun fact for you. Mother's Brewing just had their cellar sale. And they had about 6 bottles of that left. There's no more left of it. Oh. Because they don't make that beer anymore. Right?
It was a one-off.
Yeah. So, they only have a little bit left of it.
Me too.
Do you only have one left?
No, I have a couple.
Oh, gotcha. Well, yeah, I'll probably never get drank, unfortunately. Maybe on this show. We'll see. Maybe for a special edition or something.
Crack one.
That. Yeah,
Manhattan Day.
Which is?
I don't know. I feel like I have another beer around here that's a Manhattan style.
The way I'm saying this, I feel like I'm going to ask if you want to do this show a couple more times because you obviously you've been the most knowledgeable about beer since we've started the show, and it's been just an absolute joy to have you on here. So we've kind of been, kind of venting a little bit, and since this is for the YouTube channel, but it's also for the podcast, which is called Geekly Bi-Weekly, or at this point I think it's called The Wannabe Critics. Check us out. Why don't you give us a little bit of information on what the beer thing says?
So Beer Advocate gives us a rating of 94 on this beer, 6.4% ABV. And that is, it's been rated 253 times. So, for 253 times be rated 94, that's pretty solid. That's
pretty solid. Yeah. I got to agree, that's pretty close. And with everything, what's it got on Untapped?
Let's check. Check our Untapped.
I didn't know that you could scan the barcode with that.
Oh, man, it's so much faster.
Yeah, that's true.
4.25.
Very nice.
And that's the high side. 4.19 is the low side.
Okay. So it's got
10,000 check-ins gives it at 4.19. So 4 to 4.5 is probably its It's where they're pulling the average out of, so pretty solid.
It's pretty solid, and I mean, I have to agree, after drinking, I've been trying to drink as many sours as I can, and this is, I mean, you know how sometimes you open a beer, and after it warms up a little bit, and after it's been exposed to the air for enough time, obviously whatever carbonation is left in it, it starts to release, right? And the taste kind of, it doesn't get, what's the right word for it? It kind of just gets a little flat, you know? Which it can still taste good and still be flat. Like you open like a Bourbon County, and you're drinking that bad boy down, you're sipping on it. I mean, for me, I like to take plenty of time with my Bourbon Counties, and it's like, whatever carbonation was left in that is completely gone at this point. Yeah. But it still tastes amazing. This, we've been talking for at least 20 minutes, and this tastes almost exactly the same ever since pretty much every sip I've had. Yeah. Which, I mean, that kind of speaks to the quality, in my opinion. It's really, really solid beer. Like we said before, it's delicious. I think the blackberry, I like that it says it's brewed with blackberries, as you were saying before, and it definitely comes across, but it's not so forward. Just kind of a lingering taste. So would you agree? For me, as the the show runner, I would say this is a 4 out of 5. Do you think that's solid?
On Untapped, I'd give it a 4. 4.2.
I think I'd give it a 4 out. I'm going to give it a 4 on Untapped, and that's just because since it is brewed with blackberries. I like that it's not so overbearing. It's nice. It's more of a lingering taste. You can be like, oh yeah, that is blackberries on the back. Yeah. After you take a drink and you kind of are breathing, it's like, oh, I taste it now. Yeah. I wish I had just a little bit more of it.
A little more blackberry.
Just a little more blackberry, but it still does its job. It's delicious. It's very much on the wine, side of things is kind of what it reminds me of.
I have a Sweetwater sour with blackberry. We could see if it had more. Well, I mean, maybe on the next episode.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. So we will be wrapping this episode up, which kind of helps because apparently my camera just stopped. I'll have to get some settings figured out or something. We're talking to that phone back there now. Good thing we have a backup. You know what I mean? So you can kind of get a view of what's been going on here. Thank you so much for checking us out. We really, really appreciate it. I appreciate it. This has been Beer Bros. Charlie Murphy. Thank you so much for opening up your home for
we'll do it again.
Sharing your beer. Yeah, I definitely want to do it again because that was a lot of fun. Really, really appreciate it. And we will see you next time on Beer Bros. So take it easy, everybody.